What is up? What is up, YouTube? Man, check this out. Nigerian deported. The video the U.S. don't want you to see. Oh my gracious. Hey, y'all hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. We're going to be covering a lot of stuff about this deportation. Trump deports thousands of immigrants to Africa. God dang. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. Let's check this out, man. Let's see what's going on.
3 Nigerians deported from the United States for various crimes, as at least 3,000 more deportees expected to return home.
Thousands of Nigerians are being deported from the U.S., and no one saw it coming. Why now? Why them? And what triggered this silent purge? Let's find out. They didn't break down the doors. They didn't arrive with sirens. They came quietly, in unmarked vans, in plain clothes, sometimes even with smiles. In early 2025, something strange began to ripple through Nigerian communities across the United States. It wasn't broadcast on the news. It didn't trend online. But word of mouth spread fast in places like Houston's Little Lagos, the Bronx's Yoruba enclaves, and the bustling African neighborhoods of Maryland. People were vanishing, not into the night, but into immigration vans, courthouse side doors, and lockdown holding facilities. And no one could explain why the names being called were almost always Nigerian. At first, it was one person here, 2 people there. A man who went to his monthly ICE check-in and never returned. A woman who dropped her kids at school and never made it to work. Then came the phone calls. Desperate, urgent. They got me. They're sending me back. Call my family. And still, no one in the mainstream media said a word. What made this wave different was its silence. There were no high-profile raids or televised deportation flights. Instead, it unfolded like a whisper campaign, precise, quiet, and surgical. The targets? Nigerians with unresolved visa issues, expired documents, pending asylum cases, or minor administrative violations. No violent charges, no serious felonies, just unfinished paperwork. In many cases, these individuals lived in the U.S. for years, some even decades. They had American-born children, mortgages, jobs, and deep roots in their communities. Yet none of that seemed to matter. One by one, they were marked for removal. The calls started reaching Nigerian embassies by February. A pattern was forming. People of the same nationality, from different states, all being detained with shocking coordination. It wasn't just ICE doing the groundwork. In several reports, local law enforcement began cooperating with federal agents, acting on signed detainers even when immigration status had nothing to do with the original arrest. What confused many Nigerians was how they were identified in the first place. Some had pending appeals. Others were still in court, yet they were picked up anyway. Immigration lawyers later revealed that final removal orders had quietly been signed in bulk in late January, shortly after President Trump signed an executive memorandum expanding expedited removals. Behind those policy moves was a deeper strategy: clean the system quickly, efficiently, and quietly. Nigerians, who ranked high in visa overstay statistics due to complex renewals and backlog issues, became prime targets, not because they were dangerous, but because they were vulnerable and statistically available. In detention, the story was worse. People who had never been in handcuffs were suddenly placed in jumpsuits, denied access to phones, and relocated to remote ICE facilities with barely any notice. Families were left scrambling, contacting embassies, searching for lawyers, and launching GoFundMe campaigns. But the pace of arrests outstripped the system's ability to respond. The machinery had already started. At one Texas detention center, a 33-year-old Nigerian man who overstayed a student visa by just 4 months was placed in the same unit as individuals with serious felony charges. His only crime was overstaying, a technical violation, but he was denied bond because his deportation was already scheduled, a fast-track list. The most haunting detail, however, wasn't the arrests. It was the fear that followed. Even those who weren't on the deportation list began disappearing, voluntarily. Parents stopped sending their children to school. Students dropped out of college mid-semester. Workers resigned from their jobs without explanation. Churches reported a drop in attendance. Clinics stopped seeing Nigerian patients who feared registration would alert authorities. It was as if an entire community had gone into hiding. For every person detained, dozens more began to self-isolate, afraid they might be next. Some fled to Canada. Others simply vanished within the US, disconnecting their phones, moving out overnight, or taking shelter with distant relatives in smaller cities. And the fear wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. ICE had started using community presence operations, visiting workplaces, courthouses, or apartment buildings with informal lists, asking about specific individuals. Friends of detainees were being questioned, landlords were approached, church members were quietly watched. It was no longer about enforcement. It was intimidation by visibility. What made this all the more devastating was how invisible it remained to the rest of the world. There were no hashtags, no global outrage, no trending videos. For most Americans, it wasn't even happening. And for most Nigerians outside the US, it was unthinkable. Until that is, news broke that 3,690 Nigerians were listed for imminent deportation, and the first plane was getting ready. That's when Nigeria itself had to ask a chilling question. Why are so many of our people being targeted all at once? And what forces, political, economic, or diplomatic, made them the first in line? That question takes us deeper, not just into the how, but into the why. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. Not Guatemalans, not Chinese, not Ukrainians, not even Mexicans, who have historically topped deportation statistics. In 2025, under a revamped U.S. immigration policy, it's Nigerians who are being detained with eerie precision. But this isn't random. This is calculated policy engineering, driven by data, strategy, and a new kind of political theater. Behind every ICE raid, every courtroom signature, and every van door slammed shut is a logbook of metrics. The Trump administration, back in office as of January 2025, wasted no time in weaponizing that data. One particular chart caught the attention of White House advisors. Nigerians represented a disproportionately high percentage of visa overstays and asylum denials relative to other African and non-African nationalities. In 2024 alone, 3,690 Nigerians were recorded as having final removal orders. These were not mere illegal entrants. Most of them had entered legally, as students, work, or tourist visas, and overstayed due to reasons ranging from job loss to education disruptions. But to Trump's team, they were statistically low-hanging fruit. And here's the twist. Unlike many immigrants who evade detection, Nigerians often do everything by the book. They file for extensions. They attend court dates. They register for social programs, which means they're easily traceable. A paper trail leads right to their doorstep. And in the new immigration war, visibility is vulnerability. But policy is never just about numbers. It's about optics. Trump had returned to office on the promise of restoring America's borders, a slogan meant to signal more than just physical security. It was a cultural call to purify America of what his base viewed as freeloaders, foreign threats, and non-white others who had benefited under previous democratic reforms. And in the post-COVID, economically strained America of 2025, that messaging landed hard. Within that narrative, Nigerians became the perfect scapegoats. Why? Because their story is complicated. Unlike Central American migrants fleeing gangs or Syrians escaping war zones, Nigerians don't always fit the refugee mold. Many are highly educated. They speak fluent English. They attend Ivy League schools. They're visible in healthcare, tech, and academia. In short, they succeeded. And for a certain political audience, that success feels threatening. In conservative media circles, Nigerian success stories are often warped into anti-immigrant talking points. They take the scholarships, they crowd our hospitals, they use fake marriages to stay, they say. Right-wing outlets began circulating misleading data in early 2025, claiming that Nigerian immigrants were abusing the asylum system, despite there being no such statistical trend. So when Trump's team designed their tiered enforcement priority list, Nigerians were placed not at the bottom, but somewhere dangerously near the top. And there was one more reason. Nigeria is diplomatically weak in the U.S. immigration negotiation game. Countries like India or China often push back hard when their citizens are targeted. They delay travel document issuance. They threaten trade retaliation. Nigeria, while a giant in Africa, doesn't wield that kind of leverage in Washington. It doesn't have the trade threat capacity, nor does it contribute meaningfully to U.S. manufacturing supply chains. So when America asks, "Will you accept a plane load of deportees next week?" Nigeria usually nods. By February 2025, the White House had quietly signed agreements with at least 6 compliant countries to fast-track the deportation of their nationals. Nigeria was one of them. There were no press releases, no signing ceremonies, just logistics teams and deportation flights on standby. This compliance made Nigeria a testing ground. If the U.S. could detain and deport hundreds of Nigerians quickly and cleanly, it could roll out similar operations on other cooperative African and Caribbean nations. And there was something else fueling the machine: internal politics in Nigeria itself. Faced with growing youth unemployment, an overstretched social sector, and a crumbling naira, Nigerian authorities were secretly grateful to receive fewer remittance-dependent returnees than expected. Quietly, officials viewed deported citizens as a workforce they could eventually plug into domestic initiatives. Some in government even believed returnees could help fill labor gaps created by recent immigration waves to Europe and Canada. But whatever the justification, the effect was chilling. Being Nigerian in America became a liability overnight. For the thousands now marked for removal, it didn't matter how long they'd been in the U.S., whether they had families or if they were tax-paying workers. A final removal order, even from a years-old visa issue, was now enough to activate arrest and deportation. And behind those orders wasn't just ICE. It was an entire federal apparatus, lubricated by politics, image control, and selective enforcement. But targeting is just the beginning. Once identified, Nigerians are taken into a hidden world few understand. A network of detention centers, deportation charters, and silence. They vanish into the system only to reappear weeks later, sometimes in Lagos, sometimes in Abuja, with nothing but the clothes on their backs. So what does this deportation machine look like from the inside? Once a Nigerian is flagged for removal, the story doesn't end. It just moves underground. What follows is not a trial, not a debate, but a procedure. The kind that runs 24/7, far from courtrooms and TV cameras. In this world, the deportation process is not about crime or justice. It's logistics. It's booking numbers, coded documents, silent transfers, and human beings treated as administrative cargo. The system begins with a form, the Notice of Custody Determination. Once that's signed, the person is no longer just an immigrant. They are a removable subject, someone whose presence in the United States is now legally invalid. And from that moment forward, every decision about them is made without their consent. The lucky ones are sent to designated ICE holding centers. The unlucky? Transferred to private detention contractors, massive facilities run by corporations profiting from the federal government's deportation contracts. These aren't like jails. They're worse in one way. You're not convicted of anything, yet you have fewer rights. Inside, Nigerians face a stark reality. They are isolated linguistically and culturally. Few detention staff understand Yoruba, Igbo, or Hausa. Medical requests are often delayed. Food is bland and unfamiliar. Phone calls are rationed. Some detainees have described going days without access to their lawyers. And when meetings do happen, they're brief, squeezed into 5-minute windows in crowded rooms with bulletproof glass. For the 85 Nigerians who were cleared for deportation earlier this year, the wait has become a psychological trap. Some have been sitting in these centers for weeks, even though their removal orders were finalized. Why the delay? Because deportation flights are scheduled like supply runs, only when the numbers hit a certain threshold. Until then, they remain in limbo. Some were taken while attending school, others from hospitals, a few from workplaces. Their belongings, confiscated and stored in labeled plastic bags. They are given standard-issue clothes, and their legal identity, passport, visa, ID, becomes irrelevant. These centers are not uniform. In some states, detainees are treated with minimal respect. In others, abuses are routine. Former detainees have reported use of solitary confinement, physical intimidation, and deliberate medical neglect, especially toward African detainees who question orders. And because deportation is not a criminal sentence, detainees have no guaranteed right to bail. They are stuck until the flight arrives. When that flight comes, it's not announced with dignity. There's no advance notice. Sometimes it's a whisper in the hallway. Sometimes it's a 4 a.m. knock on the cell door. You have 10 minutes, no phone calls, no goodbyes, no closure. You're given one set of clothes, often not your own. You're shackled, wrists, ankles, waist, escorted by armed guards, and placed in the belly of a chartered plane. These flights, often operated by ICE's Air Operations Division, run under high secrecy. Flight schedules are not public. Families are not informed. In some cases, Nigerian consulates are notified only after the person has landed. The actual flights are as sterile as the process that precedes them. No announcements, no destination screens, no human warmth. Just paperwork, silence, and a journey to a home many haven't seen in years, or don't even remember. And what about the moment of arrival? Contrary to the assumption, deportees are not handed over to family members waiting at the airport. They are met by Nigerian immigration authorities, processed again, questioned again, and in some cases, transferred to separate facilities if their cases involved any criminal allegations in the U.S., even if they were non-violent or never proven. These processing centers in Nigeria aren't prisons, but they're not exactly welcoming either. There is no national reception program for returnees, no counselors, no translators, no mental health support, just forms, fingerprints, and bureaucrats. And then, they're let go. No transport, no housing, no guarantee of reintegration. Some are lucky. The family picks them up. Friends offer help, but many wander out of the airport alone, with no SIM card, no local currency, and nowhere to go. For people who left Nigeria in their teens or 20s and who are now returning in their 30s or 40s, this isn't going home. It's time travel into a country that moved on without them. There is also the deeper pain of stigma. In many communities, being deported carries a shame that's hard to explain. You're seen as someone who failed abroad, a returnee, without success, a cautionary tale. Worse still, your story isn't believed. Try telling someone you were deported not for stealing, not for hurting anyone, but for a paperwork issue or overstaying a visa, and most won't buy it. For them, America only deports criminals. That perception can destroy reputations, families, and future job prospects. The deportation system is designed to be efficient, but it's not designed to be fair. It functions like a machine, indifferent to background, circumstance, or dignity. And once it spits you out, it never looks back. But Nigeria must, because these returnees aren't just individuals. They are a wave, and they are growing. Now the burden of response has shifted from Washington to Abuja, and the question is no longer how they were deported. It's, what does Nigeria do with them now? The wheels touch down, the engines hiss, the plane doors open, and just like that, they're home. Except it doesn't feel like home. For the Nigerians deported from the United States in 2025, the return to Nigerian soil is not a celebration or a reunion. It's a confrontation. A moment where everything they once left behind now stares them in the face, without warning, without comfort, and a plan. And that's the problem. Nigeria was not prepared for this. As deportees step off the plane, some still shackled, some dazed from sleepless flights, there's no structured process waiting. No transitional housing, no formal reintegration ceremony, no psychological support desk, just long immigration queues, hurried interviews, and officials tasked with logging them like imports. These are citizens, not cargo. Yet they're processed like arrivals on a manifest. The Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM, has tried to provide some scaffolding. Job training workshops, temporary assistance programs, reintegration funds. But these systems were built for isolated cases, not waves of returning deportees. In 2024 alone, 138 Nigerians were deported. Now, in 2025, thousands more are expected. The infrastructure is simply not scalable. And most of these returnees, they've changed. They no longer think, speak, or even dress like the average Nigerian on the street. Some have American children they were forced to leave behind. Others come back with nothing but a detention uniform and a trauma they can't describe. They are strangers in a country that calls them sons and daughters. Once they leave the airport, they enter an even harsher landscape, one of public suspicion, economic exclusion, and social isolation. Communities often view deportees as failures, or worse, criminals. Employers hesitate to hire them. Extended families keep their distance. Friends, unsure of the truth, often disappear. Some deportees find themselves homeless within days, living under bridges or in makeshift shelters in cities like Lagos, Kano, or Enugu. For some, this leads to a dangerous spiral. Without employment, housing, or support, many are drawn into underground economies, petty crime, or fall prey to human trafficking networks. Ironically, the same young Nigerians who were deported for staying too long in America now find themselves planning new exits. This time through illegal routes to Libya, Tunisia, or the Canary Islands. It's a revolving door of desperation. Deportation does not end migration. It reshapes it, making it more dangerous, more secretive, and more traumatic. Meanwhile, Nigerian politicians remain publicly silent. Deportation is not a popular topic in campaigns or policy debates. No major party has proposed a robust reintegration budget. No nationwide initiative has been launched. Instead, deportees are treated as a byproduct, collateral damage from a global immigration war that Nigeria never signed up for, but is now being forced to absorb. This silence is strategic. To acknowledge the crisis would mean confronting the reasons Nigerians leave in the first place: unemployment, insecurity, education gaps, and lack of infrastructure. It's easier for the government to say, they broke American laws and came home, than to ask, why did they feel the need to go at all? But outside the government, Nigerian civil society is beginning to stir. NGOs, youth collectives, and religious institutions are starting to organize informal support networks, providing meals, job referrals, and legal advocacy for deportees. In some communities, churches and mosques have begun offering returnee healing circles, recognizing the emotional toll of being uprooted, detained, and dumped back into an unfamiliar environment. And on social media, something else is growing: rage. But will it change anything? Why are humans being treated like this? Let us know in the comments section. Why is no one taking action? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.
Man, they are deporting. I'm letting y'all know now, man. You better start saving up. Save your money. Put some money under your pillow. Better start saving up, man, because the United States is about to go through something worse than a recession. It's a lot of states is fighting back against the government. A lot of people don't like the way they deporting people. You know, they going after Nigeria. No, they not just going after Black people. Oh my God, y'all kill me with that one. Because they definitely they're going after the people that don't supposed to be here in the first place, period. How you got here, that's your business. Man, y'all hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. Uncle Mike out of here. Y'all take it light, take it slow. Tell him Uncle Mike told you so. Peace out.